Our U.S. tour continues on today's episode of the Producer Podcast as I'm joined by Bob Raines from the Tennessee Entertainment Commission. How does the Entertainment Commission work? What does the future of film look like in Tennessee? And what should you know about filming in the state? Join us as we dive into these questions and much more. Thank you, Bob, for taking the time to come on to the Producer Podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, to start off, just kind of share maybe a little bit about yourself on what your role is at the Entertainment Commission and kind of how you came to work there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the executive director for the Tennessee Entertainment Commission. It's an office of the governor. We're managed by the Department of Economic and Community Development. I've been working for the Tennessee Entertainment Commission now for 22 years. I've been in it for a long time. I've seen a lot of evolution in film commissions and definitely in the film and television industry over my career. I think probably like most people that work in film commissions across the United States and abroad, you sort of find your way, to doing this job through a sort of, a winding journey, I would say. For me, I started in the radio business. That was a business that my family had been in, and did that for many years, and then ended up getting into political campaigns. And so I helped to advance gubernatorial candidates. When they would go to different towns here in Tennessee, and they would, be meeting with people or just, going to visit the town. I would, advance it, go into the town, help set everything up, set up interviews, set up, places and staging for the events that they would be talking and meeting the public. And so ultimately what that sort of put me, or where it put me at, is that I had a really great understanding of the state. I'd visited all 95 counties, before I was 25 years old. And I had a pretty good network at that time of a lot of county leaders, just through me going in and advancing and coordinating things with the community there. And so, when I went to, interview really with the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, one of the things that they were looking for is they were looking for somebody to do location work. And at that time, incentives weren't really a part of bringing in productions from the West Coast. It was really location based. And so I had a little bit of an advantage and some experience with what locations were like, and sort of the makeup of the topography of the state. And then I also had those connections with local leaders. So whenever we were going out to recruit films or television to the state, I was able to sort of easily plug into, a lot of the different communities around the state as we were doing recruitment efforts. And so that sort of led me, to the commission. And then ultimately, incentives became the driving force. And just, when incentives started, I got into helping manage the incentives and the financing side of the commission and the operations side. And as things evolved and incentives came so important, they were looking for somebody, at the time, to then be able to manage the grants, understand production financing, and then that, of course, sort of led to more of my networking with studios and more of my connections with people that were doing the incentives financing at the time. And so that's sort of how I stumbled into it.
No, that's cool. And starting with radio, I haven't talked to anybody yet where that was kind of their first thing they did in entertainment. So that's neat. Um, So one thing when I was kind of looking over the Entertainment Commission's website that stood out to me is it's the Entertainment Commission doesn't just cover film, it also covers music, which obviously Nashville and all that and Tennessee, music's a big thing. But like you covering both aspects, are there additional benefits or unique ways that those two things can kind of work together that maybe with a lot of these states where all they do is film, you don't see that overlap?
Yeah, it's one of the unique aspects of our state. I think when I have to, talk with my other colleagues across the country, people, in other film commissions, other executive directors, a lot of their focus is on film and television. Because we have this unique asset around music here, it does create a more formidable type of creative class that we have here in the state of Tennessee. Our creative class has been here for 80 plus years, and it's a creative class, built around music originally, singer songwriters, and of course, record companies and distribution companies, moving into the state. But also, it's really it's really this foundation around creators, living here, collaborating here, and we necessarily don't have to bring in workforce into the state. And so, over the years, as this creative class has been here, it's sort of evolved and has morphed, from music. Now, we're getting more into film and television, um, um, crew and more skilled workforce that have moved here, especially over the last 10 years. A lot of that has to do with the music industry, just because talent always attracts other talent, to a location. And I think that, by Nashville, predominantly Nashville, sort of being that sort of center for music in the country. I mean, we're one of the top three markets for the music industry here. Is that attracted a lot of people that were just in the film and television ethos coming here, and large in part due to, as music has evolved, a lot of music artists wanted to start doing more 360 type of deals,
Hmm.
with their IP, with their intellectual property. And part of that growth within the music industry was, how do we take our music and how do we monetize it into broader stories that can be elevated into films, can be elevated into documentaries, and that really started bringing a lot more production here, to the state, because they were doing more stuff around these music IPs. The other, thing that music has done is it's brought these companies, here, companies like William Morris Endeavor, Paramount, Warner Brother Discovery, UTA, CAA, all these types of agencies, all these types of companies that do content creation. Again, they're looking for a broad spectrum or a broad scope, to elevate their artists and to monetize their artists here. And so that just gives us really more of this sort of synergy, here in the state to create more, IP out of here. And so it's given us, again, this really great bedrock that I've always felt is very unique to other states that just focus primarily on film and television, because film and television is a very transient type of industry.
Hmm.
But here in our state, the creative class lives here, they work here, and it all sort of ties into one another with music and film and television really, really, really well here.
Even for me, I can see how Tennessee and especially Nashville is like kind of growing as a hub. I've had a lot of friends in this industry move to that area in the past like 5 years, and quite a few film projects by people I know have shot there. And so like I guess I'd be kind of curious to just hear your thoughts on like where you see the future of film going in Tennessee in like the next few years, and like What things might the state be working to kind of get in place to help the industry continue to grow?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, in the next few years, I mean, I see nothing but growth potential for our film and television industry here. I think right now we're probably projected to grow somewhere, around 36% in employment
Okay.
here in the state of Tennessee. Um, and the last 5 years, what we've seen is that we've seen about a 43% growth in our film and television industry. We were generating around 400 and maybe $86 million a year was sort of our GDP around motion
Mhm.
picture and video production over the last 5 years. Recently, we've hit about 728 million in gross domestic product here, just coming out of the state of Tennessee. So again, that's about a 43% increase over the last 5 years. It's created about 353 million in new earnings for Tennessee workers here, and so that's a significant bounce,
Yes.
for us right now. And the concentration for us is workforce. I think as we expand, we've gotten more television series, high impact television series here in the state. So we recently just wrapped up an Amazon Studios TV series called Scarpetta, starring Nicole Kidman and Jamie Lee Curtis. Then we went straight into Ryan Murphy's 911 Nashville, which is a TV
Mhm.
series based off the 911 franchise. And, that's $1 billion franchise that ABC has. And so now they're in their first, season here in the state. And then we're probably looking at going season two with Scarpetta and the 911 series. Typically, it's probably going to last 3 to 5 seasons for us. And so, the growth potential around TV, especially, is very, very positive for us right now. I mean, we're looking at the next probably 24 months. We're going to have some ongoing type of high impact television series here in the state. And of course, those television series now, they spend upwards of $100 million in the economy, and they can hire anywhere from 400 to 600 local people here in this state. So again, it's very fast growth for us, especially in a time where a lot of film is going global and leaving the United States. We're very lucky to sort of have these types of TV series in our state. And again, some of that goes to Nicole Kidman lives here, and we have the celebrity and we have the actors, that are moving here now and living here. And then like a 911 Nashville, that has a lot of music elements to it. So that's really tied to our music industry here. So, again, just all these sort of things working together in a more broader ecosystem right around entertainment. And I think that that's what gives us that opportunity to really grow, over the next 24 months. But sort of in the middle of that, though, is our workforce, and our workforce right now, I would say is definitely at capacity. Uh, we
Okay.
are we're working with schools and working with apprenticeship programs and trying to get a few things developed to try to put more skilled people, into the community. But
Hmm.
this takes a little while to do. But again, very, very positive things for our state over the next couple of years.
That's awesome to hear, and looking forward to see how things continue to grow there. So I wanted to jump, and this kind of ties in, I guess, to how you got started with the film office and like that more location way. But what are like some unique characteristics or aspects of Tennessee that can benefit films shooting there?
As far as locations, we've got pretty much everything here in the state except for an ocean.
Hmm.
And we've actually cheated. We've cheated ocean
Okay.
before too here, but We've got the mountains, of course, the Appalachian Mountains that sort of run through the eastern part of our state, all the way down to the Delta, which is Memphis. And so there's a lot of different topographies that can be used, in sort of one state. The other thing is that we can cheat for other areas. What I've seen sort of grow, at least in the last few years, is that Nashville is now being cheated for larger cities, just
Okay.
because the growth of Nashville. We've got a lot of new skyscrapers in downtown, so there's a lot of density, and so you can go downtown and you can cheat it for a larger market. Like say like a Chicago. I think
Mhm.
we've been cheated for New York as well. Of course, those are very tight shots that they're doing, but you can do that kind of stuff on the street. And because we're not a tier one market like a Los Angeles or New York, being able to come and film in a downtown area to film in an urban area, it's a lot easier because you can do permitting, you can close down roads. The new 911 Nashville series, we're doing a lot of stunt work now, and that is something that's relatively new for us, where we're
Mhm.
able to shut down bridges or shut down roads and sort of put together these very dynamic scenes right around first responders and some sort of dramatic catastrophe that's happening, to drive the show's storyline. And so we've been able to, I think, get into that and do it a little more easily and more
Okay.
fluidly than other larger cities. The other aspect is that you can be outside of any of our major cities within probably 25, 30 minutes. And so we don't have urban sprawl here, as much as tier one markets do. And so you can come here, you can be situated in a more of an urban setting, but then you could go outside within 30 minutes and you can film in rural areas and you can sort of use that look as well without having to pick up and move an entire television or film crew hours away. And so I think what that does is that from a location standpoint is that really helps to condense the economics right
Mhm.
around a movie or a television series, because you don't have to budget for those long moves anywhere. You can keep it within a 30-minute or 45-minute radius. And again, it just makes it more efficient. It makes it more effective for budgeting. It gives us a little more of a competitive advantage.
Definitely. And yeah, I've been on some of those film projects where they had those big moves in there, and those were always a pain to work through and plan to actually get it all to happen on time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. And when you're a line producer and you're sitting down and you're having to, look at a script and sort of break down, the different pages and break down the financials, based on a script, being able to sort of have, locations in a very tight radius is going to cut down, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, on a
Hmm.
budget. And especially if you can hire locally too, because typically your crews are going to be located in high density areas or around high density areas. And so when you come into those types of locations, you're able to crew up a lot easier. When you get to those places, you're also able to get production services a lot easier as well when you get to those types of locations.
Definitely. So then for people like me who don't live in Tennessee, but maybe we're looking at bringing a film production to your state, like what's some things that us out of state filmmakers should know about even just like the culture of your state, kind of what to expect when we come?
I would say friendly business climate. I mean, that is sort of our claim to fame is that we have a very, very friendly business climate here, in the state, because we're not a large film and television or motion picture and video production hub here. Um, you know, People are able to connect a lot easier with other folks. So I think there is a lower barrier of entry here than going to larger markets. We're able to bring in people if they're from out of town and they're coming here. We're able to easily connect them with the right folks so they can go in, they can get the production services that they need, they can crew up, with the right crew. And then they can also meet some of the community leaders that they will need to have relationships with to be able to, do permitting or to be able to, pull off whatever location work that they might need to do here. So, and everybody is very responsive, to film and television. Again, it's a very creative state, right? I mean, it's a state that not only houses creatives, but it also brands itself on, music, and it brands itself on the entertainment industry. So, it's something that I think that everybody, understands. They understand the impact of it. They understand the importance of it. And that's a very beneficial sort of environment to step into whenever you're somebody that is managing $100 million on a budget and you've never been to the state before. You want to be able to come in, you want to be able to sit down, set up, and be as streamlined as possible, as quickly as possible, again, so you can sort of save money on your budget and put that money up on the screen at the end of the day.
So then getting onto the money side of things, let's look a little bit at what Tennessee offers for incentives.
Yeah, so what the state offers, we have two incentives. One is a 25% grant program. And so what this is 25% that goes towards your labor for any qualified productions, and then also goes for any of your goods and services that you get, while you're filming
Mhm.
here in the state. Also, with that grant, music qualifies as well. And so
Okay.
when people come into the state, they typically are doing something that's music heavy. And so the incentive allows them on the music side to go in and get licensing for artists that are here in the state, because we do have a lot of the licensing companies here, like Sony ATV, which is a huge company, and Warner Chappell. They all have their companies here that do the licensing, for artists. And so they're able to utilize that asset and be able to apply the grant against it. And so the program is very simple. The grant money is put in a reservation, for production companies on the front end. So that way, when they come in, they project what they're going to spend here in the state of Tennessee. We put that money in a reservation amount for them. That way, they have it while they're filming. So if something happens to the program, or if other bigger productions might come in and take money out of it, if you have qualified, for that reservation, it's going to be there for you at the end. Once they get through filming, then they have to go through an auditing process, which is, pretty standard with a
Hmm.
lot of other states. And then at the end of it, it's really just it's a cash rebate that then gets transferred to the production company. And so what this really allows a higher effective rate. You might have heard that before from other states, is that, there's these effective rates that go into these types of incentives programs where, you might see that you're going to get 25% on something, but at the end of the day, once you go through maybe brokering tax credits or you go through the refundable process, that 25% might not equal 25%.
Mhm.
With a cash rebate, it always does. It's just based on what you spend, and so it's really straightforward program. A lot of independent productions use this grant due to its simplicity. If you're an independent feature and you're going to come in and you're going to spend $4 million here, you're able to go, get the, do your production here, get the audit done, and then, get the money within a reasonable time frame. We typically are turning around rebates, between 4 and 6 months right now. We're getting
Okay.
that back to the production company, and that right there is a great competitive advantage for these indie films that are needing that money to maybe do post production, or
Hmm.
they're needing to pay back investors on the back end. And so it really allows them to sort of have that flexibility versus maybe having to broker a tax credit, or having to wait until the taxable year to then turn around their refundable credit. So we get a lot of positive feedback from independent companies and independent films being here. The second program that we have, it's a larger tax credit. The tax credit that we have, it's a non-refundable, non-transferable credit, so it's a little more complicated.
Hmm.
But what it's set up for larger conglomerate companies that have tax liabilities here in the state of Tennessee, to be able to do production, to do a qualified production and generate a tax credit based on the spend of that production, and then use it against their tax liability here in the state of Tennessee. And so what that was created for, it was created for companies like Amazon, which is here. So Amazon, they have a large presence in the state of Tennessee. They generate a pretty substantial tax liability. And so they own Amazon Studios. And so now, because of this new program, Amazon Studios is able to come into the state of Tennessee. They can generate a 40% credit against their payroll here,
Okay.
and then they're able to offset that, with the larger, like, Amazon Corp tax liability.
Hmm.
So if you're an Amazon Studios, the company is so big that, being able to do this is very impactful, because, they don't really worry too much about the timing of an incentive.
Right.
They don't really worry about, like, am I going to get it back in 4 or 6 months? They just want to be able to monetize it over a reasonable amount of time. And so that program has been very successful at bringing larger, high impact television series to the state. We've worked with Amazon Studios, we've worked with NBC, Universal, Warner Brothers, Paramount, Apple Studios. They've all used that credit to be able to come in and do production. So it's a good pairing with our grant program. Our grant program, again, it allows for more independent films to be done here, but then the tax credit allows for those larger, high impact television series to be done here. And at the end of the day, the strategy was around that is that, we have these two types of incentives in place, and it will generate a much, it'll generate a better ecosystem within our production community at large. Because if you have independent films being done in your state, then that allows people to train up. Not everybody can go and get on a high impact television series, right when they get started. So
Hmm.
by having a really healthy independent film community here, we're able to get people coming out of college or people that might be transferring from other jobs to get into the industry, sort of learn, on smaller budgets, get trained up. And then as we bring in larger television series, it gives them the opportunity then to move up into these higher impact TV series. And again, it's a much it's a much broader focus, right, around the ecosystem, around workforce development, and not just being singularly focused on one or the other, but looking at it broadly.
Yeah, no, I like that. Definitely the training is super important. I know a lot of filmmakers where it's like sometimes that's the hard part is like, well, I'm ready to work, but finding the projects that will actually use somebody at the skill level and experience level that I'm at is fun.
Yeah, and it's hard when you're getting into the industry because it's a very relationship driven
Hmm.
industry, and a lot of people want to hire folks that, first of all, that they know, but second, that have some set etiquette and understand when they're on set, just sort of the basic foundations around doing that. And of course, the higher you go up into these budgets, the more at risk that you are by not hiring people that are very skilled at what they do, because these higher impact television series, anyway, they can spend millions of dollars a day
Yes.
on something. And so again, they're looking at those really high skilled workforce. But again, I think having both programs allows people the opportunity to sort of grow into the industry. And I think the other sort of unique thing that we're seeing here in the state is a lot of projects now are being created out of our state. And that is something new. In the 22 years that I've been doing it, the majority of it has been we utilize the incentive to then attract productions into the
Hmm.
state. But what we've seen happen is, since we've had a lot of people move here over the last, since the pandemic especially, a lot of these people have set up studios. They have developed their own IP. And by having these incentives in place, our own local companies can tap into these grants and be able to stay here in the state and be able to not only to develop the IP here, but to be able to produce here and distribute, here. And again, as part of that piece of the ecosystem, that is a great return on investment for our state when we can actually develop the IP here, but then get the additional economic development off of it because they're creating production here and they're doing pre-production and physical production and post-production here, and all those great jobs are being created here. And at the end of the day, when they sell their product or they sell their IP, then that money then comes back to our state again, because it's held here, because the company is here. And so that is something new that is really started to take off in these years. And honestly, 95% of the people that are applying for our grants or applying for our programs, they're Tennessee companies
Nice.
that are here. And so I think that that goes a long way in help to fortify the community here for the long term. Because for us anyway, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, it's not just what are we looking at in short term, but how are we really creating this sort of long term industry here that's going to be here for the next 10 years, next 15 years,
Hmm.
and not just become a bubble and then deflate.
Right. I guess looking at the incentive then, and I guess specifically like kind of the application process, how does that work? Are there, certain times of the year that you have to apply to get it? Is there any type of minimum spend that productions have to be hitting to qualify, things like that?
People can apply anytime, of the year. Typically the way productions will go in cycles,
Hmm.
especially in the Southeast. They'll typically film like in the spring and they'll film in the fall. Not so much in the wintertime here, but our application is process is open year round. So when a production approaches us, They will, they'll have their financing in place. They'll have their script in place, their budgets in place. They're usually about 30 to 45 days out from filming whenever they come to apply with us. They apply with Form A. And everything I'm talking about, all the applications can be found on www.tnentertainment.com. It's www.tnentertainment.com. And that also has all the guidelines there as well. So they apply for the program. We put the money into a reservation for them, into what we call a grant contract for them. So they have it. It's locked into a contract with the state of Tennessee. They'll go through a contracting process with us. Once that is established, then they just basically go and start their production. They make their expenditures at that point. At the end of it, then they go through the auditing process, like I said, and then we rebate the money back. The minimum spend to get into the program is $500,000. So you have to have $500,000 in what we call qualified Tennessee spend. So that's that spend that is going to be for Tennessee labor or Tennessee goods and services. Some of the things that typically will not qualify, for the program are going to be outside the state if they're having to bring stuff inside the state. Anytime that they're filming across borders here, because sometimes they'll film in for a little while across the borders of our states. All those types of expenditures won't count towards the program as well.
And then I guess, and maybe I just missed when you said this, but like, is the application like all online or?
Mm-hmm. Yep, everybody can go online to www.tnentertainment.com, and you'll see all the forms there. The form to start with is going to be Form A as an alpha, and that's the form that everybody wants to start with. They can read the guidelines and download the guidelines on our website. And of course, any other questions, they can reach out to me and talk, through their project with me, talk through timelines with me, talk through budgets with me, locations with me. That's typically how we sort of start the process off anyway. I always will talk with folks before they even, start the application process. And I think part of that is, one, so they understand the process, but two is that, is this project a good fit, with the state as
Right.
well? Because we want people to come in, we want them to be successful, we want them to leave with a high quality product, because that just reflects on us. And so I always take the time to sit down with a producer or even with investors and just sort of talk through everything with them, talk through the process with them, and make sure that they fully understand and to see, is this a great fit for what you're wanting to accomplish?
Yeah. So I'd be curious then, with your experience, are there like certain things that you've like maybe consistently found, like if a project has this, it's usually not a great fit for our state. Like you might want to look elsewhere for your project.
Yeah, I would say the big thing is horror movies. Um, you
Okay.
know, Horror movies, they make money, and
Hmm.
I always get a phone call, probably at least once a week. I'll get a phone call, and it's some sort of slasher, type of movie, or creature monster type of theme to the movie, and that is typically not something that we'll put through the program. But again, those types of movies, we know that they make money for people. It's not that they can't film it here in the state. I always tell people you can film that in the state of Tennessee. It's just not something that the state will necessarily invest in. But
Hmm.
I think that that's really it. I mean, that's sort of a big thing that I see that comes in. trying to think if there's anything else that I see sort of come across that typically aren't good fits. I mean, for the most part, yeah, I mean, most things are good fits for our state. Again, we're very accommodating. We have, such a great palette of locations and looks, and we have such a great, workforce, here that, most things can be accommodated. I think if we probably get into larger productions, like a $200 million production, I think if the productions get outside of sort of our normal budget ranges, I've had to, tell people that I don't think that we have the workforce, or I don't think that we have the the production service capacity for $200 million
Okay.
film to be done here. Um, Something like that, might come up every once in a while. You just have to say we don't have the capacity for it. One day we will. But at this moment, I would say 100 million is probably our ceiling at this point.
Starting to kind of just wrap things up here with a few final questions. Um, First one would be, is there anything that filmmakers maybe seem to forget that the Entertainment Commission can help them with? And maybe it's after the project's done and you're talking to them, and then they're like, "Oh, I wish I would have known you guys could have, helped us with that."
That's a great question. I think when people are filming maybe outside larger areas, if they're going to smaller communities,
Hmm.
I think sometimes they'll go into a smaller community, without coming to us first, and have to maybe deal with, whatever the situation is, in a smaller town or smaller community. And I would say, if they probably would have came to us first, we would have been able to tell them, hey, you know, if you're looking for this type of location, we know that this community is, extremely amenable to, having film and television production in their town or in their community. And, that might have, helped them to navigate a little better. Maybe even finding something closer to wherever their production hub was at. For the most part, a lot of our communities are very amenable, but being able to make those introductions for the production company, and make the right introductions, it just always helps to streamline. So I do know on the back end. Also, I think sometimes there's some unique locations that a production is looking for, and they have went outside the state to do a B-roll on it, and they've had to leave the state. They'll take their second unit, they'll go to another state, they'll sort of shoot a B-roll shot of it and insert it. And on the back end, we've come back and said, well, we've had that, we've had
Hmm.
that look, unless it's something very specific or iconic that people know. But on the back end, we've been able to say, no, we had that. You didn't have to, leave the state to go get it if you were filming here already. Um, and then maybe the third thing would be the music side of it, just because a lot of people, even though music is at the forefront of a lot of the things that we do, sometimes people miss opportunities, to connect with the community here, which we have those types of network as well to help with connecting these productions, with the right music folks here. It could be music supervisors. We love to connect people with local music supervisors because they know the managers, they know the artists, they know the music here, and they're able to really direct productions to the right people and give them, I think, the right sound that they're looking for. Where sometimes people come in, they might have an out of state music supervisor, and maybe it's just sort of a general idea of what they're trying to accomplish here, and maybe they didn't quite get what they wanted, and so we've had some of that on the back end, as well.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely see how that would be super helpful for productions to have. Another question I had is just like, what would be one piece of advice you would give to a filmmaker that is getting ready to work with a film office for the first time on a project?
Call us as early as you possibly can. When you're doing your planning, when you're putting together your budgets, when you're putting together, your storyboard. Give us a call. Talk through with us sort of what your vision is of what you're trying to do with your production. I think being able for us anyway, being able to share that it helps us it helps us to better coordinate with them on maybe what area they should be in, who they should talk about, who they should talk to in the beginning, especially line producers. I always tell first-time filmmakers that are coming into the state or coming into any state really is that if you're not familiar with that state, then you need to call up your commission and you need to have them help you find a really great line producer, local line producer, because a local line producer is going to be able to negotiate the contracts for you. They're going to be able to deal with the transportation contracts for you. They're going to be able to deal with the actor contracts for you. They're going to help negotiate the equipment for you and find the right crew. And a great line producer is pivotal for success when you're going into any local market. And so that's if I could just nail it down to one thing, it would be call the commission, share the vision, and then let us connect you with a good local line producer that can help you sort of put it together operationally.
Mhm. Yeah, that's for sure. I've definitely worked with some really good local line producers, and I've also been on the end of being that line producer that isn't local, and I can relate to the challenges that you
Yeah,
face then.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
So then just final wrap-up question here for people interested in talking more about bringing their next film to Tennessee. How can they connect with you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I would say calling the office directly or emailing us directly. You can call us. Our main line is 615-741-3456. That's a great way just to get into us quickly. You can email us at tnentertainment@tn.gov, and email us, that you guys are interested in filming in the state of Tennessee. All this information is on our website at www.tnentertainment.com. You can go there. You can find all of our contact information. We even have an about page with me, our project manager, Hisela Moore, or our director of business development, Jimmy Wheeler. You can find our email addresses, and you can also find our phone numbers on the website as well. So they can contact us anytime. We are available, always available. Actually, I don't think commissions typically don't shut down. We have to sometimes work nights and weekends, and so we always stay available.
Awesome. That's good to know. I never thought about that. I always think, oh, it's usually part of the government, so they probably, are just, business hours Monday through Friday. But
No, we answer after hours as well.
with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up this episode of the show. But thank you once again, Bob, for taking the time to come on today.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Thanks, for allowing me to talk all things Tennessee.
And with that, we're going to hit the road as we head off to find our next film office to visit. Let us know what state film office you'd like us to talk to next by messaging us on social media or emailing us at micah.theproducerpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, make sure to subscribe to the Producer Podcast and keep listening as our journey to episode 100 continues.